Ooh, those F and C words. Change and confidence, child. 2 words that are so scary they may as well be curse words. Let's talk about it. On this podcast, we'll share our stories about hardship and starting over, making professional pivots, ending relationships and friendships, and having the confidence to navigate change. I'm Marcia Cork, the change coach, and this is Ooh, those F and C words.
Thanks, Marcia, so much for having me on this morning. My name is Tony Butler Sims. I am the vice president, currently the vice president of People and Culture with Cultivating New Frontiers in Agriculture. It is a nonprofit international development organization who actually has work globally. We do no work here in the United States. The majority of all of our work is in developing nations, primarily sub-Saharan Africa. This is now my 32nd year in human resources, so I'm dating myself a bit, but I think that I have a little bit of knowledge and expertise on both the nonprofit sector as well as the private sector side. So,
Absolutely. Wow, 32 years.
yes.
All the credentials today, all the credentials. And that's why I couldn't think of a better person to have this conversation with, because I know, and even personality wise, you are going to give us the information that we need, but in a way that's realistic, to have people setting realistic goals and expectations and candor. And that's what I appreciate you, about your skill set and about your personality. So thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
I also want you to mention, because I know that you do some work with SHRM and with the Forbes Council. So tell us a little bit about that experience as well.
Well, I'm one of the founding members of the SHRM Executive Network. I was inducted late last year, and I'm very active with that group as well as the DC chapter of the Society of Human Resources Management as well. And I'm also a member of the Forbes Human Resources Council. The Forbes HR Council is an invite-only group of HR executives around the globe from every sector. So I'm very active in both of those organizations. I have been published multiple times in Forbes with some topics that are related to HR management overall. But over the last couple of years, primarily revolving around remote work and how that's affecting the Great Resignation and the climate in today's workforce.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that. And that's precisely what we want to talk about today. The Great Reshuffle, the Great Resignation, what that looks like for people who are trying to make a career pivot. And initially, when we planned this discussion, I was telling you I wanted to focus on the people making that pivot, actually taking some skills and transferring them to another area. But I do want to also focus on the freelancers, the contractors who've been, consulting for years, but are now perhaps considering moving into the workforce full-time themselves. Okay, so let's talk through both of those lenses. I've been having a lot of conversations with freelancers and consultants in the past week and a half. So I think this is going to be just as beneficial for them as well.
Yeah,
Okay?
I really think that from my aspect, the world that we work in international development overall, have not seen that grave of a hit with the Great Resignation, because we have what we call, you talked about transferable skills, but we have transferable skill sets. And that means that we're competing for the same type of talent. And the organization that I work for, we actually have a subset of that. So we're agriculture related only. So think agribusiness, agroeconomy, things of that aspect, which is a very, very small segment of the talent pool. So we are struggling with the aspect of losing those talent to organizations that are seeking the same type of skill set and or develop that same type of skill set. So it gets back to the point or the purpose of, when you think agriculture, you think farming, and a lot of individuals, especially people of color, want to move outside of that sector, if you will. So those are the challenges, if you will, that we have. But we also look at how folks that are on the consulting side of the house have always been freelancers, if you will, but
Hmm.
also have been individuals that have set their own structure, set their own
Yes.
pace
Yeah.
for themselves. And it's all been driven by a statement of work or deliverables.
Yeah.
And when you have to shift that mindset to come into an organization and work for a company versus working for yourself,
Hmm.
therein lies sometimes the challenges for individuals in that space because they have to shift that mindset. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm finding is people have been freelancing and consulting for years, wanting to be self-employed, wanting that flexibility, wanting autonomy, but saw such an increase in how much they could make, during
Uh-huh.
this time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, these rates skyrocketed. What they could make with the salary skyrocketed. And on top of that, they were able to still do it from home. So they
Mhm.
did still have some flexibility. They were getting these perks of this additional paid time off, sometimes unlimited time off. So
Yeah.
it was very appealing. It was finally a climate that self-employed people could actually, transition into and get the benefits of both worlds, really having that flexibility, that autonomy, but being remote and making some really good money for that time. So I know that has been the appeal across the board for both the career pivot, the professional pivot, that pandemic pivot, but
Mhm.
also for consultants and contractors moving into FTE.
Yes. Let's be realistic. Coronavirus, the pandemic over the past 2+ years have actually turned the employment workforce or the talent pool upside down. I mean,
Upside down.
look at it from a different lens, and that lens would be the housing market. It
Mhm.
did the same, uh,
Yeah,
which means that it ended up being a seller's market and a buyer's market at the same dang
same
time.
time.
uh, so let's be realistic when it comes to employment. It's the exact same thing that occurred. So you had individuals who wanted to be independently consultants years prior to the
Yeah.
pandemic, and those individuals now see that I can still have that autonomy,
Hmm.
but I can work for an organization which also offers me benefits. So
Yes.
from your retirement planning to your health care to all of
Hmm.
these health and welfare benefits that a self-employed individual typically doesn't have built into their structure.
Right.
So that is one of the things that I think the pandemic has taught us. It has taught us that the work can be done anywhere,
Yeah.
from any location, and that primarily folks are more productive when they're able to take a 5-minute commute from their bedroom to their office versus an
Yes.
hour-and-a-half commute here in the Washington, D.C. metro area to go 20 plus miles. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Okay, well then let's talk about how to do it right and what people are doing wrong. Okay,
yeah,
let's talk about some interview tips. Let's debunk some myths. Let's get people better prepared to sell themselves and make that transition effectively. All right,
yeah.
so let's start with navigating the job description
Mhm.
because that's important. I mean, first of all, you got to be seen. You said there's a transferable skill set, that there are still qualifications that people are looking for. And if you haven't been in that environment, like you said, in your environment, very specialized experience. So, yes, you may have some transferable skills, but when you're looking for a complete set, a complete package, how do you navigate that if you're coming from a different industry?
I think what you have to first look at is this. Um, I think you have to first find out what it is that you actually want to do.
Mhm.
Because if your passion isn't there for the role that you are applying for, it's going to come across. Um, I think one of the mistakes that we've made in the past for a lot of individuals have been them applying to every job that they see that they
Yeah,
think they have interest in.
yeah,
If the job in and of itself doesn't suit you as an individual, it's not going to be a great fit. It's not going to be ideal. And what I mean by that is this: we have so much information at our fingertips right now.
Mhm.
So you can, review the organization as a whole by going to Glassdoor or things of that aspect and looking at what either current employees are saying about this employer or past employees have said about that employer. The same thing relates to the executive team of the organization. You can review their LinkedIn profiles and things of that aspect to really get an understanding of the culture of that particular place
Mhm.
that you are thinking about being employed with. The last thing that I would say is bring your whole, true, authentic self to every meeting, every interview, every discussion that you're having regarding what your career path wants to be.
Okay. Mhm.
Not so much as where you want to be in 5 to 10 years, but where's the now?
Right
What are
now.
you
Yeah.
looking for right now? What is going to work for you? Because it's a two-way street. If it doesn't work for you, it isn't going to work for the organization either.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that. That's perfect. I've been talking about my It's Me approach.
Yeah.
Introduced it on, I guess, a couple of episodes ago, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in the next couple of weeks in a part one and part two series. But
Okay.
that It's Me approach has people get comfortable developing their elevator pitch and selling themselves in an
Mhm.
overall introduction, but then also talking about that brand story, really establishing their professional brand. And when do you start having those conversations? So, the LinkedIn profile, you start putting yourself, your brand, your desires, talk about your past and
Mhm.
what about that past brought you to your present.
Yes.
So, in the conversation that we're having around making that professional pivot, making that career pivot, there should be something, at least in your past, that's brought you to why you're approaching this organization today,
Yes.
right? Or if it's not the organization's mission overall, the work that you would be doing, at least within a department, within that role, within that capacity, that still supports the organization's mission. So
Mhm.
there's a way for you to tell that story in your brand story.
Yes.
Okay. So again, talking about that past, some truth, some trauma, testimony from your past that really sets the tone and drives your decisions today, the work that you're doing today. And then maybe, then you can go on and say what you plan to do or how you plan to support the organization's mission in the next 1 to 3 years. But it
Yeah.
really should be optimizing the work that you do today, the skill set you have today, and how you can support that organization. LinkedIn is a great place to do that. Are you finding that people are starting there, or are they reaching out to you too late in the process and now their LinkedIn profile doesn't really support the resume or the work they want to do today?
Well, I think that it's twofold. First, they may be starting from a space of not knowing where to go. And what I mean by that is you look at social media overall, and I think that when you're building your brand, you need to also have a professional page or pages.
Okay.
And you should not. I think what we do ourselves a disservice is when we link our personal social media pages to our professional
Mm.
social media pages, because what employers are doing now is they're looking for a cultural fit for their specific organization. And although we should not be viewing it in that lens, the majority of the time we are.
Yeah.
We look at whether or not this person will be a cultural fit for this specific team.
Yeah.
Now, specific teams within organizations can be siloed, uh, but when you come to the nature of trying to really figure out whether that person is going to be a great fit for that team or a great fit for the organization as a whole, you look at the entire package.
Yeah.
So I think we do ourselves a disservice when we link our personal pages to our professional pages, because that would potentially put you at a disadvantage.
And I don't think most people realize search engines do that for you.
Yes.
You know, when people search your name, your Twitter accounts, your Instagram
Uh-huh.
accounts, your Facebook accounts, all of those things show up. Now, thankfully, LinkedIn typically shows up first.
Yes.
So when people search
Because
your
they pay
name,
Google to show up first. That's why.
and that makes perfect sense. But at least you are shining a bit by starting with your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Where you run into trouble is that the others follow right behind. So when you're active, in fact, the more active you are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of those accounts, the more active you are, they're guaranteed to show up right behind your LinkedIn profile.
Correct.
So if
Correct.
you are actively job hunting, it's probably a good idea to take a pause from
Mhm.
social media, the social media,
That's
and
correct.
focus on LinkedIn and really optimize LinkedIn. And a lot of people aren't doing that, myself included. I only started back probably within the last year and a half.
Mhm.
And to stay on brand, even on LinkedIn, with what you post, you have to be careful even with what you like, because that
Correct.
activity shows up in LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
So those are the conversations that we could be having about making that professional pivot and really establishing your brand, how to do that on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So are you finding that people are using that effectively? Is there more that you would like to see by the time people reach out to you, so that their resumes, and their LinkedIn profiles are in alignment?
I really think that a lot of people have started to utilize professional social pages more over the last 2+ years, specifically surrounding the pandemic, than they had in the past.
Okay.
I think people really now recognize that their brand matters. And I think for me, when it comes to individuals that are searching for a new role at a different organization, that they really put themselves forward. They really focus on what their needs are. I think this
Okay.
past 2+ years have taught us that the talent pool is vast, but it also has taught us that remote work is here to stay.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is a lot of organizations are struggling with trying to figure out whether they do a remote work strategy or a hybrid strategy and things of that aspect,
Yeah.
uh, and come back to the space of understanding how much total square feet do I actually need as far as real estate for an office for individuals to be, successful, or for individuals to come to the office. I think that old school mentality of out of sight, out of mind is out of the window now. Uh, we in the organization that I currently work for had a struggle with telework pre-pandemic. So we only did telework. We allowed folks to telework for 2 days a week, but we were
Okay.
well positioned when the pandemic started that we were able to shift to fully remote work. And I think that we set ourselves ahead of the curve in that aspect. Also, although there was some pushback, of course, again, the whole out of sight, out of mind kind of thing came in there. But what we also realized that there was a lot of dead time that individuals were having. So you think water cooler talk, you think chatting it up when they're getting a cup of coffee or tea in the cafe or something of that aspect. So when
Mhm.
you times that times 5 people or 10 people, you've lost a lot of productivity. When
Right.
individuals are working remotely from their homes, I feel, especially for my team, that they have been more focused on their work. They've been more dedicated to doing their jobs. Not to say that they weren't previously, but what I'm saying is that they don't have that hour and a half or 2 hour commute time. So they can dedicate
Yeah.
to actually focusing on the work.
And uninterrupted.
Uninterrupted,
Yeah.
correct.
So that's
Now
a
you may have to go
productivity
walk
as
the
well.
dog, you may have to go fold the laundry, something of that aspect, but uninterrupted. That's correct. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay, well, before we move on to the next topic, then, some quick, some rapid fire answers, yay or nay, yes or no. Are they doing it right or are they doing it wrong? All right, so LinkedIn, should they or should they not connect with the hiring authorities in advance? If you are scoping out a business, If you are doing the stealth stalk and you can search profiles and find out
Mhm.
who the right people are,
Mhm.
should they connect with you on LinkedIn? Yes or no?
Absolutely, yes.
Really?
Yes.
Elaborate. I was not expecting that.
I think that the answer yes is because it puts you into a space where you can actually feel out that individual before you start the process. So if you're thinking about an organization, so one example would be this. Uh, if you're thinking about joining a specific organization because of their mission, because of their values, because of
Mhm.
their culture, yes,
Then you want them
absolutely.
in your network. Yes.
They need to be in your network. You may not know them personally,
Hmm.
but you can start that conversation from there. I think that connections are just that. They are connections in the
Yes.
space of you being able to reach out to individuals that you either have not known or wish to get to know. So, absolutely reach out. There would not be an issue or even a conflict with doing that.
That is good to know because I agree that you should follow them if there's the
Mhm.
follow option. And if you do reach out and connect, I would suggest staying quiet only because people don't want to be harassed. So the same
Yeah.
way hiring authorities stopped putting their contact information and job descriptions, not putting a point, not listing a point person, people don't want to be harassed. And in
Mhm.
this case, now we have quick and immediate access through LinkedIn. And so that can backfire. So I do suggest following, definitely suggest, I will
Mhm.
suggest alongside you connecting with them if you stay quiet.
Yes,
Because now that you're connected, they will at least see what you post.
correct.
So you will still be putting yourself out there. You'll still be in their face and you can, do these think pieces. You
Mhm.
can, post the right content that lets them see what you're about, see where you stand on an issue, a perspective. So yes, I can agree with that, but do not harass them or
100%. And then it goes
yes.
back to also building your brand. So
Right.
this
Mhm.
all pieces into that.
Okay, perfect. Okay, one more LinkedIn question. We see the job announcement on LinkedIn. Do we apply using LinkedIn's interface or do we apply using the organization's interface?
I would recommend that you apply using the organization's interface. And more often than not, the easy apply linked on LinkedIn does not transfer all of the information that you want to convey to an employer. Uh,
Okay.
it allows you at times to attach your resume or your CV, but it doesn't provide you potentially an option to sell yourself with your cover letter or something
Okay.
of
Mhm.
that aspect. So I would recommend if there is an option of applying on the organization's applicant tracking system to do it that way.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I also hear that anywhere from 70 to 80% of the job opportunities within an organization are not posted, not on their website, not on LinkedIn. Any truth to that? And can you elaborate?
There is some truth to that. I would not go as high to 70 to 80%, but I would
Okay.
typically say you're looking at the middle or the median of where 45 to 50
Okay.
percent.
Okay.
Uh,
That's still
and
significant.
what happens is this: it depends on the level of the role. A lot of times, organizations that are looking for, senior leadership, executive team members, things of that aspect, will utilize a search firm, a placement firm, if you will, and those organizations will reach out and find the talent that the company is seeking. And that's the majority of the time where you would see roles in that aspect. But if you're looking for a entry level or junior member of your team, you will potentially see those roles posted
Okay.
on that organization's website. I think transparency matters. However, you also have to realize that in a very structured or highly visible role,
Mhm.
a lot of organizations do not want other organizations or companies to know that they have a senior level individual that is departing, whether it's for a retirement, whether it is a forced, whether we force them or manage them out, or something of that aspect. So it's a double-edged sword, if you will. But it all goes back to the culture of the organization or the company that's actually doing the hiring.
Okay, that was a gem right there. So for senior level professionals
Mm-hmm.
wanting to reach out to that organization, what's the best approach then? Is it to align with an executive firm who's probably going to do that work for them because
Mm-hmm.
they have the relationship with the organizations? Or is there something they can do in the way of, like we said, establishing that connection on LinkedIn and starting some conversations about the opportunities that might exist?
I think it's both. I really feel that if you're an active job seeker, that you use every avenue, every street that's available to
Mhm.
you in an effort to find that right role for you or your next role for you. Um, when I say it's both meaning you establish yourself with a firm or firms that are executive search firms,
Okay.
so you can sell yourself to them. That means that the organizations that come to them to seek talent, uh, they will have an understanding of what that looks like for that individual or what it looks like for that person. They would then know, they being the search firm or the placement firm, will know what a good fit looks like for you because you've
Mhm.
actually had those candid conversations with them to say, this is what I'm seeking. These are my needs. These are my wants.
Okay.
So you start with your needs and then you go to your wants. Needs would be A, B, and C. My wants could be something that's pie in the sky, wish list kind
Okay.
of a thing, if you
Hmm.
will.
Hmm.
So I think when I say both, it is exactly that. You actually look at every avenue and every street that's open.
Okay. All right. So very quickly, just some things, some tips that you can provide, some myths that you can debunk. I asked this question because I had a conversation recently with a friend of mine who does hiring for the IRS. And these were two very good points that she made about the tell me about yourself question
Mhm.
and those scenario based questions. Tell me about a time X, Y, and Z, how to navigate those. I felt like I've been answering the tell me about yourself question wrong for all these years. So I would like to hear your perspective and then I'll chime in and share what I feel like I learned from that conversation.
What I will say is that I think behavioral based questions are things that are went away with the dinosaur. I really don't feel that they give you a clue into who the person is and what that person will bring to you or your team or the organization as a whole. Because what's going
Okay.
to happen is this: that individual is going to tell you what they think you want to hear versus who they actually are. So when I said bring your whole self, your true authentic self to the interviews, to the meetings and things of that aspect, that's reality. Uh, I'll leave it
Yeah, I can see where you wanted to say more, and I know
there.
why. I know why. Because sometimes you can't bring your authentic self
Yeah,
because that might mean you don't get this opportunity. And we
correct,
are used to selling ourselves in a way that lands us the job,
correct,
right? And then
correct.
deciding if we can show up and be our authentic self when we get there, or some
Of
version
course.
of it.
Of course. And I think, and I don't want to pull race into this, but people of color have always struggled with being
Yeah.
seen. And I think that is one of the hiccups that we have with this entire talent pool dynamic that's going on now. So when I say bring your true authentic self, I truly mean that. Be you, because if you
Okay.
can't be you with the people that you spend the majority of your time with, the folks that you work with, let's be
Yeah.
realistic. You spend the
Hmm.
majority of your time with those individuals. Outside of your home life and things of that aspect, work is primarily at the forefront. So, Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then if you are a jokester, then you should joke around. There should be some humor,
There should be
casual,
a
formal.
level of humor there,
Okay.
but you have to be able to know your audience, read your
Yeah.
room. So
Yes.
you can't do colorful jokes and things of that aspect in the process. Let's just be realistic.
Yeah.
But read your room, know your audience, and it goes back to your research. If you are able to research and know that the person that you're meeting with loves baseball, then use some baseball jargon. Come on,
Yeah.
that's a quick fix. That is
Yeah.
low hanging fruit, easy thing to do when it comes to that aspect. And it's not you not being genuine; it's you being genuine to that person at that particular point.
Yes. Know your audience.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a great conversation. I think I have gone through all the things that I wanted to point out specifically. Is there anything that you would like to add to the conversation before we go? Anything, any great takeaways, anything you want to share with the people?
I think that individuals need to truly understand that going back to the space of it's a two-way street when it comes to employee versus employer. Find out what that organization does, what it means to them, but also what it means to you. For me, I'm a big proponent on mission and value. And when you find an organization or a company that aligns with your vision, your core values, you can indeed be successful moving forward in that particular space.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate this conversation. And I'm going to let you get back to your week.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Love to have you again if you're willing. All
Absolutely.
right.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.